Alright everyone, my name is Liam D. Gillies. I am an absurdist playwright from Liverpool, and this little presentation is just a short teaser on my fuller course on absurdism, how to implement it, why you should be interested in it. And where do we start with it? Well, we start at the beginning, usually, but as you'll find as we get into this, that's not necessarily as easy as it seems when we're talking about absurdism. This is a typical narrative storytelling structure, the standard 3-act structure. Everything from Shakespeare to Marvel movies, with Marvel movies being a bit lazier with it and skipping a few of the obstacles out, uses this structure. And there are variations you'll find on it. Sid Field's book on screenwriting tends to be the go-to one for all film and TV producers. And of course, there's going to be experimental versions of that. Experimental theatre will do experimental things. But even in those cases, you'll always know that whatever you're watching, the play, the movie, whatever, will always have a beginning, a middle, and an end. The absurdist structure looks like this, which you can see does give us a lot less restrictions, but also completely no guidance. Really, there's only one part to mark on it, so it should look like this. At some point there needs to be a beginning, and that beginning also needs to be the same point as the end. Let's look at how this plays out using arguably the most famous absurdist work as an example, Waiting for Godot. Waiting for Godot is a play about two tramps who are standing in a barren stretch of desolate land because a person named Godot has told them to. There's never a clear explanation as to why he's told them to wait there, or what's going to happen when he shows up, or how long they have been there for. And that is what happens in the play. They stand in a field and they wait. Some other characters show up, and our main characters, Vladimir and Estragon, or Gogo and Didi, come up with some unique ways to pass the time. But there's no goal outside of them waiting. There's no obstacles outside of them waiting. There's not even a midpoint twist. They just wait. Now, if you were to say, well, that sounds like a waste of everybody's time. Yeah, you're right. It is. But if you were to say that this is a play about nothing, even though nothing happens in it, you'd be wrong. And this is where we get to the underlying theme of the theatre of the absurd, nihilism. I said that too excitedly for something that's not meant to have any emotion to it one way or the other. Nihilism. Waiting for Godot writer Samuel Beckett had an interesting life we could easily spend an hour talking about. He was friends with Andre the Giant, after all. How many famous playwrights can say that? But for context here, all we really need to know is that he was a depressive, prone to month-long periods of bed rest, and a writer who failed to make any headway in the world of literature. This all led to him embracing a nihilist mindset. A nihilist is someone who has chosen to believe in nothing. They have no faith, they have no sense of purpose, they feel no sense of connection to anyone or anything, and believe that there was no point to his existence. Which is something that a lot of people do feel. They just don't have the tag nihilism to put onto it. And around the time when Godot started writing this play in 1948, we're 3 years removed from the end of World War II. This is a period of history where a lot of people are looking for a name to give their sudden feeling that life is just terrible and devoid of any meaning. A result of World War II that's not often talked about is the effect it had on the arts. Painters, musicians, writers, people who up until then had built their lives around the craft of portraying the beauty in the world through their work were now first-hand witnesses to the horrors that man was capable of. Theatre creators who had survived World War II and were expected to just return to normal life as though they hadn't been irreversibly changed by it, they were approaching theatre through a completely different mindset now. They were approaching life through a different mindset now. They couldn't make sense of how they were meant to readjust to society after all the things they'd seen and done. And those two things combined under the point of view, life doesn't make sense, so why should theatre? And that's not to say the theatre of the absurd was a product of the war. It was popularised by it was brought to the forefront by it, but it was inspired by existentialism. Now, if you want to impress people or win points in a pub quiz won by a smart-ass philosophy major, the difference between absurdism and existentialism: existentialists believe that we make our own meaning through our actions. Absurdists, being nihilists, believe that there's no meaning at all. Absurdism is understanding that it's only natural to want to find meaning in life, But that doesn't change the fact that life is inherently cruel and without meaning. Sure, you can find your own meaning in life. You can build a career and start a family. You can live a good, meaningful life where you help people and give to charities. But in the end, our bodies are just a collection of particles that dissipate along with our consciousness when we die. And that's it. Now, obviously, this might be bad news for a lot of you who've never considered this point of view before. But Beckett believed that the fact that life is without meaning actually gave us a sort of freedom we don't appreciate. In Waiting for Godot, we know how our protagonists feel from the first scene. There's nothing to be done. That's what Dee Dee says over and over again. And we watch Dee Dee and Gogo over the course of the play as they come up with ideas to pass the time that include hanging themselves, only to not do it because it's too much effort. We watch Gogo constantly saying he's going to leave, but he never does. We watch Dee Dee make the conscious decision to remain in inaction, telling Gogo, let's not do anything, it's safer. And they both acknowledge that they don't know why they are standing in this empty, barren place which Gogo describes as with no lack of void. And yet, they agree to do the same thing tomorrow. They probably have already agreed to do the same thing tomorrow before this play started. And they've just accepted that their existence in which nothing happens is just their life. But is Waiting for Godot really a play about nothing? See, that's where absurdism gets interesting, because even though Beckett would agree that it's about nothing, you can find themes in the piece. Gogo and Dee Dee's relationship is enough for me to argue that this is a piece about genuine connections, the need for companionship, showing us that even people at the lowest of the lowest points still crave a connection, still want to be with someone, still need to be around other people, still need friendship. You could say it's about the cruelty of time, how Dee Dee is stressed by the fact that he's the only one that seems to know that time is passing, how Potso is affected by time physically when he loses his sight, and how inevitably that we will all be affected by time in some way, but we won't know how, so why worry about it? Those are just a couple of readings you can take away from the play, but Waiting for Godot is still strictly a play about nothing. That's what it says on the tin, that's what happens in the plot, nothing. And that's what I find interesting about the genre. That was just me talking about why I find the genre interesting. There's plenty more to talk about with absurdism, its relation to nihilism, its influences from Greek philosophy, and how you can implement the hero's journey into these abstract plays if you want, but that's a conversation for another time, and this video is just a little teaser of what you can learn if we all sit and think and talk about nothing for a bit. Let's all talk about nothing more, and let's all talk about absurdism more.